There is this point that one of our panelists made about how China has always chosen India to showcase its own success. But even as there are concerns from the Indian side, there are concerns from the Chinese side too. As you go into the summit, there is the trade war with the US. There are other issues of military importance, be it the South China Sea, and India's growing closeness to the US.
I think actually there are more common grounds than differences between China and India, and also for this time, critical time of the year, when the China and the United States are actually still negotiating about to put an end to the current trade war, or should we say technological war, or other kind of confrontations. But however, at this time, President Xi Jinping is choosing this time to visit India. This indicates what kind of emphasis China is actually putting upon this area, and in particular with India, this kind of rapport with this important country in Asia, and also of course with Prime Minister Modi. I think actually there's, as the previous commentator was just making the point, very good points, that actually there's a kind of a rapport, kind of chemistry being developed between the two leaders, and that is so important, I think, to be bringing some kind of real change to the bilateral relations. I think actually there are a lot of conducive, proactive, and positive things. They're more, as I said, more positivity than negativity between our two countries, and in areas we can really be joining hands to promote further developments. On the other hand, of course, China is promoting its Belt and Road Initiative. So far, of course, India is not actually participating, but there are a lot of things that are still going. They're already going, under, for example, ARIB. That actually, investments and development and loans, these are all happening. So in this area, I think that there's a lot of positivity going up between two countries, and also this visit signifies this importance that China attaches to its relation with India. And the third is obviously that there's ample room for further development and promotion of the mutual collaboration and also better relationship.
Professor Chen Hong, Executive Director of Asia Pacific Studies, Center of East of China, Normal University, joining us live from Shanghai. We still have with us Swaran Singh and Mr. Vishnu Prakash joining us here in our studios. We continue to bring you these live visuals. Swaran Singh, talking about pictures speaking 1,000 words, these pictures need no description whatsoever. There is a tender coconut drinks break that's taking place as we speak. Again, the symbolism practically writes for itself. You are in Chennai, you are in Mahabalipuram. True. It is surrounded by coconut trees, and some of the best tender coconuts are available over there. And as we see these visuals, it's so reminiscent of what we saw of them having tea in Wuhan, isn't it?
Yes. I think it's also interesting to see how we are showcasing the diversity of India. So it's not going to be chai pe charcha this time. It's a coconut water being served. And I think that is to
maybe that can cool the tensions, if I may.
Yes. I think already the sea breeze must be helping them. But also coconut being served, the coconut water, is enormous showcasing of India's diversity, the clothes and the comfort with which Prime Minister is walking there. It's clearly showcasing both the diversity, the kind of bonhomie that two leaders have.
Yeah, and two things clearly. One is India's diversity, and two is the fact that these two have met so often.
15 times. These two leaders have already met 15 times. So it shows the level of kind of body language is not just showcasing it.
Yeah. It is what it is.
It's what it is, and they are actually now comfortable enough with each other. Despite having several irritants on the way, they understand their historic responsibilities today are not limited to their nations. They have to do things beyond their nations. And I think that inordinate sense of responsibility is what makes them look so comfortable together.
I completely agree with Professor Swaran Singh, because these visuals, look at how comfortable they are, how relaxed they are, and the ease which you were mentioning, of ease of conversation. So this is not a put-on, and that is very positive, and that is precisely the advantage of an informal tete-a-tete or informal summit. To be able to talk with each other not at each other.
Yeah.
And I think this.
And look at that view from where they're sitting. It's a brilliant view to sit in. It's as if to say, do not forget history. Do not forget what we've had in common for so many centuries. Let's both of us not forget what we've had in common, and we need to have in common. And in that sense, you know, if you leave the Indian perspective and the Chinese perspective, you know, they really have a situation in hand, both China and India. If you see the economies, China, incidentally, despite all the slowdown, is doing incredibly well in terms of its economy with a 6% growth rate.
That's right.
Whereas India needs to do an 8 or a 9 or a 10, and it's not doing up to that mark. So in that sense, there is clearly a need for India to be, you know, in the best of terms with China. But China and its own ambitions, you know, while India is a competitor, India can also be a fantastic ally that it can cultivate.
Absolutely. In fact, if you notice the Chinese investments into India coming in last 3 years, they've been virtually going through the roof. From about 700 million for 2016, it shot up to 3.2 billion, and then last year 5.6 billion. Total, there are already about 8 billion plus investments in India from Chinese, about 1,000 companies working in India. So there is enormous economic kind of inertia which is building them to come together when their economies are slowing down. And Chinese investments also mean a certain support to make in India, a certain relaxation on things that we otherwise import from China now are produced locally. For example, all the mobile phones are produced locally, which has Indian inputs into it. It gives competitiveness to Indian manufacturing industry in that sense.
More jobs.
More jobs. And there are lots of other things that are going to be on the table driven by this economic desire. For example, high technologies, the 5G, Huawei. Because the focus is on economic developmental cooperation and partnership, how can we work together in advanced technologies? Solar energy, for example, photovoltaic cells technology of China is fantastic. And India is running now International Solar Alliance. So there are areas primarily driven by economic bandwidths which is expanding, which is moving them into high technology sectors, into mitigation, climate change mitigations, efficiency of energy, all kinds of new areas. And I think that is what is pushing them to kind of see their relationship here in Mahabalipuram in terms of one event in a millennia. Second important is also that this happens to be 70th year of their mutual recognition, and that also makes them to look back 70 years. How we have come so far in 70 years, where we want to go in next 70 years. And I think the key lies here in that open-ended brainstorming to think how next 70 years are going to be completely different compared to how last 70 years were, and they are not the guiding principles, guiding
because the challenges of the world is facing has changed. So what it faced the last 70 years is not the challenges it's going to face for the next 70 to 100 years. The climate crisis being the topmost of it all, and both China and India, you know, are huge land masses and huge populations that will get affected.
Not just the climate crisis. There are two aspects which I want to touch upon. One, we have been talking of trade deficit. One very good way of solving but mitigating or reducing the trade deficit is to invite Chinese companies to set up shop in India. And I think that's a very positive thing.